That doesn't surprise me. I'd be surprised if she told him the same stuff she was telling a confidant.
All right. Same date, please. Keep going, if you could keep going down. To 10:37 and 46 seconds from Lisa. Lisa then tells her, "It's okay, Michelle, I'm here for you. Just draw or write, do something that makes you happy." Correct?
Yes,
And then Luke is saying that she'd make a really loyal girlfriend and that he just got home. Correct?
mm-hmm,
Then she texts back to Luke, "I would be. I'd always put you and your problems first. I'd always be the one you can talk to about anything. I'd always stand by you and never leave your side." Correct?
yes.
She's never even met this boy, has she? To your knowledge.
Oh, I have no idea about her background. All I know is the texting.
Okay. And then at 10:41 p.m., she says to Lisa, "Thank you, and yeah, I want to write, but my hand won't stop shaking. I cut way too deep. It won't stop bleeding." Correct?
Yes,
And then she says to Lisa, "I don't want to talk, or you're going to yell at me." Correct?
yes,
Lisa says, "Michelle, get your mom right now. You could have done damage, and no, I won't yell." Correct?
yes,
To which she says, the defendant, "By the way, I'm going to see my therapist tomorrow, so she should help me." Correct?
yes.
Who's her therapist?
I don't know. I've been asking a lot about getting therapy records. She says that she's had at one point 6 or 7 therapists. I only got the most obvious record, which is the one after McLean,
Right?
a week or so, a few weeks ago.
Right.
So there's been a great deal of difficulty getting all the things I want, which are all the therapy records.
So she's claiming to see a therapist, and you have no idea who that is.
No, I cannot figure that out.
And in fact, 10 days later, strike that 11 days later, Lisa asks about the therapist, and she tells Lisa, "I don't have a therapist anymore." Do you recall that?
No, I'm not going to recall those details, but that doesn't
No.
sound like a contradiction to me.
So somewhere in
She
the span
says
of a
she's
week-
had a lot of therapists.
Well, that's the first I'm hearing of it, sir. You don't say anything in your report about how she had a lot of therapists, so I wouldn't have known that.
Oh, well,
Not become argumentative.
Do you think that would have been important to write in your report that she'd had a lot of therapists?
it could be valuable. There's tons of things I could put in the report. I could probably rewrite it and make it 100 pages.
Okay. Now, the next text down is to Lisa. "I'll talk to you on the phone, but I'm scared you're going to yell." To which Lisa responds, "Good, but tell your mom right now I'm worried you hurt yourself like bad. Michelle, get your mom right now." Correct?
Yes?
Which she responds, "Bad connection," and then she's downstairs with her friend. "I don't want to interrupt." Correct?
Yes?
Lisa then says, "Maybe you need to get your mom right now, or I'm calling her. Your safety is more important." Correct?
Yes.
She then says to Lisa, "I'm going to go tell her I'm just scared what she's going to say." Correct?
Yes.
And Lisa responds, "You have to tell her it's all going to be okay." And then she says to Lisa, "Can you stay here? Stay right there. I'll be right back." Correct? And Lisa agrees to stay.
Yes.
Which then, 20 seconds later, she's texting Luke, "Loyalty and honesty are big for me." Correct?
Yes.
All right, so she's telling her friend that she's bleeding profusely. And her friend is sitting there waiting for her to come back, and instead of, presumably, she's bleeding all over the place, she's texting a boy now.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And she then, after she texts Luke that apparently the qualities of loyalty and honesty are big for her, she texts Lisa, "Thank you, and I'm sorry for all of this." And Lisa says, "It's okay, Michelle, anytime." Correct?
Yes.
Luke then texts back, "I've never broken up with a girl. Be right back, shower." Correct?
Yeah, that's Luke.
Yeah. Then at 10:52, 2 minutes after she told her friend Lisa, "I'm going to tell my mom that I'm bleeding from cutting so badly," she texts Luke, "That means a lot," and okay. Right?
Yes.
And then she comes back at 10:58 and says she thinks I should go to the ER to check it out. Right?
Yes.
But again, the defendant's mother never mentioned anything about the defendant cutting or going to the ER, correct?
Not in my very brief conversation with her.
Well, do you have any records from any emergency room admissions for when she went for wounds?
No. I actually did ask for that emergency room, whether we had any medical records. there seems to be a lot of trouble getting medical records that we actually know exist.
You would agree with me, there wasn't a lot of trouble getting Conrad Roy's medical records. You had all of those, didn't you?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, you have a lot of medical records from Conrad Roy, don't you?
Yeah, I got a lot of medical records from Michelle.
You would agree with me that they pale in comparison. There are substantially more records from Mr. Roy that were made available to you than the defendants.
He's had multiple hospitalizations, multiple suicide attempts. Of course, she's not ever had a standard psychiatric hospitalization. She's been at McLean for an eating disorder.
Right.
And they seem to have sent a summary rather than the whole
Right, that was my other
report.
question, sir. You would agree with me, she was at McLean's for over a week. And the medical records that were provided are 5 pages.
Yes, I made a specific note of that, and I specifically spoke to the attorney about it, told him that these were not adequate records, and then it's up to him to get them. It's actually not up to the mother.
No, I understand, sir. So you would agree with me that despite the fact that she stayed in the hospital for well over a week, inpatient, the sum total of records you had were 5 pages.
Oh, I not only noticed it, I made specific mentions on a few occasions to the attorney and said,
All right, don't tell us what you spoke to the attorney.
oh,
about.
Yeah, I'm
thank
not
you.
asking for that. I wasn't
No,
asking for
I know,
that.
you didn't ask it.
Okay,
Okay.
all right. But you'd also agree with me that you just said that she saw a lot of therapists, and we don't have any of those records, correct?
No, all we have is the records after McLean,
Right.
when she's in that program and in the therapy.
Correct. Okay, so back to where I was. So she says, the defendant says, my mom thinks I should go to the ER, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, she then says, she thanks, Elisa, thanks, but I don't know, we're going to see how it is in the morning and check it with my therapist, too, because I don't want to go to the ER, correct?
Yeah, so that's why we don't have an ER record, I forgot.
She then tells Lisa, go to bed if you're tired, I don't want to keep you up. I'm sorry, it's been a really long day. Are you sure everything's okay, though? And Lisa asks her, is everything okay, though, now, correct?
Yeah, you're going kind of fast, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'll slow down. I have a tendency to talk fast and loud. And then she says to Lisa, don't be sorry. I understand it's okay, and yeah, I think I'll be okay. But I'll let you know in the morning how everything is. Thank you for being there, Lisa. It means so much to me. Good night, sweet dreams. I love you. Correct?
Yes.
And then 2 minutes later, Lou Cosgrove is back.
Yes.
All right? Good night, Michelle, and yes, please text me in the morning. Right?
Yes.
Which she then says to Lisa, I will, I promise, correct?
Yeah.
And then 6 minutes later, says to Lou Cosgrove, yo, what's up, MF, not going to swear, but in capital letters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is after she's been injured herself so badly, her mother wants to take her to the emergency room, correct?
Yes.
And things are so much better now, she's joking around with some guy she may or may not wish to date. Okay. And he says that he's LMFAOO, eating popcorn, and she says popcorn is my SHIT, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then she says that down, if we could jump down please a little bit, to 3:14 at 11:33 and 10 seconds. Okay. She says that she wants to meet Luke's mom someday.
Not.
That's awesome. I hope I can meet her someday.
I'm just not seeing that. Here, I'm at 11:33 and 10 seconds. That's all. I got it. Thank you. That's awesome. I hope I can meet her someday. Yes.
And that's, if we can go back up to 11:31, that starts the mom conversation, if that helps.
Okay.
Luke says, nope, I was watching the news with my mom. She inquires, are you close? Are you and your mom close? Correct?
Yes.
He says, yes, very. She knows everything. And then Michelle says, that's awesome. I hope I can meet her someday. And
Yeah.
then if you want to go down a little bit to 11:33 and 55 seconds. I want you to meet my mom too, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so this would be, and there's more, but this would be what you're relying that she cuts, these text messages.
Yes, I think the details are such, the complexity of the discussions are such that, and the difficulty in fabricating something like that, I mean, it'd be really extreme ability if you could do something like that.
I agree,
think-
sir.
I don't think that this is unreal.
You
Sir-
don't think what?
I don't think this is unreal. I don't think she made this up.
Sir, she's saying that she's bleeding and needs to go to the ER while simultaneously emailing a boy about meeting his mother, and you don't think there's any possibility it could be made up?
No, she could be exaggerating.
Well, she tells Lisa she went and told her mom,
Yeah.
and mom doesn't tell you anything about that.
Yes, but I'm not sure that's a reflection. I mean, parents, including me, often don't remember or want to report things that reflect on our parenting.
Sir, and I don't want to get too much of the details, but when you interviewed her parents, you at least advised them that you wanted to get as much information as you could, correct?
Oh, gosh, no. It was
No?
not that kind of interview.
Okay. So less is more, you didn't want to know things?
The setup was not under my control.
Okay. All right. 5/3/2014. 6:56 and 59 seconds. Okay. You would agree with me on this date that she is texting Lexi, "I'm such an effing idiot for cutting though, I'm so stupid. I never cut so deep before," correct?
Yes.
And this is after she's texted Lisa that she almost had to go to the emergency room for another cutting wound, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And 5/3/2014, 7:26 p.m. Okay, shit, like it won't stop bleeding, right?
Yes.
Okay. And Lexi responds, "Michelle, what the F? You could hit a vein." And the defendant says, I think I did. Correct?
Yes.
And then she says, "No, I didn't." Go down to 5/3/2014, 7:44 and 25 seconds. "If it doesn't stop, I'm going to the hospital." Correct?
Yes.
She then goes on to ask Lexi if she'll go to a meeting with her, correct? Keep going down a little bit. Would you ever go to one of those meetings, correct?
Yes.
So she's telling Lexi she's cutting herself, and now she wants Lexi to help her, right?
Yes. Her texts read like this about everything.
Right. She tells people things and then asks for their help, correct?
Yes, and she hears things from people and offers them help. You're not doing all those. There's tons.
I've just started.
There's
sir,
tons
so
of
I'll get to them.
those. Yeah, okay.
But fair to say, she elicits it from people. She says things like, "Did you ever cut too? Or have you ever been depressed too?" She asks them to confide in her, so she then offer help.
You're making sound manipulative,
Yes.
which none of her friends think is manipulative. All of her friends love her. They care for her. She gets voted most likely to brighten your day by her classmates. This is her method of relating to people on a very strong level. And on a couple of occasions, friends say, "No, I can't handle going that deep into emotions."
That's pretty consistent. Most of her friends at some point tell her to back off, that they can't handle it.
Some of her friends do, and I'm not surprised. Then think about what she's dealing with a young man who keeps telling him he's going to kill himself. This
Now-
is a demonstration of how hard it is for young people to hear each other's horror stories, and this is kid stuff compared to what she's getting from Conrad.
So, please continue on. So she's talking about how she never cut so deep. Now, could you go to 5/3/2014, 8:06 p.m.? Now, despite the fact that she's telling Lexi she's never cut so deep and concerned she cut a vein, she's now texting Lisa, "Hey, how's Atlanta?" Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is her method of communicating about everything. You're just picking out cutting. This is how she talks, and this is how she
This
relates.
is just my first topic, sir. I'm just talking about cutting right now. So, despite the fact that her mom didn't mention cutting, There's no medical evidence of cutting. And you would agree with me, she's texting other people while supposedly in medical distress. Your opinion is she cuts.
Yes, I've actually had many patients whom I didn't know were cutting for months and months. They learn what clothes to wear. They learn what to avoid. They cover their bodies when they go to doctors. After they get more to trust me, they tell me all this stuff, and then eventually they show me the cutting and we talk about the cutting.
Right, sir, but
People who do cutting are very secretive about it, and they learn how to avoid. They learn to go to doctors and say, well, I'm shy or something, and things like that. And most doctors, great majority of doctors, are not looking at a youngster and saying, I got to find out if she's cutting. So young people hide cutting from their families, from other people, all the time. And you notice she's not alone in being a cutter.
no, sir, but my point is that she is supposedly having major medical issues to the point of needing medical attention, but she's not, she's taking the time. At one point she says, I can't even write because I hit a nerve, yet she's texting a boy at the same time. How injured could she be if she's texting and claiming she thinks she hit a vein?
I don't know if she's exaggerating. That I don't know.
Okay. But despite
That's
the
another characteristic of some of the people who cut.
But it's despite the fact that there's zero evidence other than these text messages that she cut, you are forming an opinion as a doctor that she cut.
Yeah. Everything she says is consistent with a cutter. The fact that she feels better afterward.
Did you ever
And
consider that she's not
incidentally,
being honest in the text
you're
messages?
interrupting.
Sorry.
Both speak.
Go ahead.
One of the things I noticed is that she sometimes cuts more after she's had a tense moment with Conrad. I guess you could argue, well, then she wants a tense.
No, guess.
Don't guess. Don't
Sir,
guess.
I
Absolutely
didn't
don't
find
guess.
one example where point me the example of where she had a tense moment with Conrad and then she cut herself.
Oh, I'll have to dig in. Maybe a break, or do you want me to take 10 minutes?
No,
to go through this stuff?
If you say you can give several, you said it's common, so if you can give some examples, I would appreciate it. Actually, if you could go to 331, please.
Well, no. Do you want me to
Yeah,
take?
no, go. I'm just pulling this up while you're looking.
I'm having trouble finding cutting. I didn't tag for it.
Okay, well,
So I could-
on the subject, 3/31/2014. Can you go up a little bit, Mr. Sec? Go up a little bit.
That would be on the screen.
Yeah, and I could go back and look there if you
Sure.
want.
You go to
It's on the
3/31.
screen. These records are in evidence, so there's no question as to the authenticity.
No, I just meant to look for the cutting.
So on 3/31/2014 at 10:03 p.m., would you agree with me, she texts Sam Boardman, "I think I hurt a nerve in my hand," correct?
Yeah,
Then 6 minutes later, she's texting an unidentified number, "Hey, I just finished, sorry," correct?
yes,
And then after that, text Conrad Roy, "Hey, sorry about yesterday, I was really busy, haha, but hi, how are you doing?" Correct?
yes.
If you could go down to 3/31/2014 at 10:14 p.m. "Hey, I'm okay." Again, this is Sam, a little bit after she's texted Conrad, "Hey, I'm okay, I just cut kind of deep." Right?
Yeah, I don't have the records for this period of time up here with me.
So you would agree with me that she's the one who texts Conrad during this cutting incident and says, "Hey, sorry about yesterday. I was really busy, haha, but hi, how are you doing?" Correct? Want to go back up to Conrad again?
Yeah, you need to focus me, I was trying
10:10.
to,
"Hey, sorry about yesterday. I was really busy, haha, but hi, how are you doing?" Right?
yes,
And at the same, you want to go down? "Hey, I'm okay. I just cut kind of deep." Correct, to Sam Boardman. 4 minutes later. So you agree with me, Conrad Roy had nothing to do with that claim of cutting?
oh, I'd have to look at this whole
Okay.
several pages to figure that out.
Fair enough.
I mean, this is like, 10 minutes can be 20 pages. I'd have to look at it all.
All right, so now,
Well, let's go back. What is,
No, sure.
okay,
You can wait for the question.
all right, now, one of the things you testify to is in order to determine if someone is involuntarily intoxicated, you need to get a baseline of behavior, correct?
yes,
Okay. And one of the things you've done in pretty much every other criminal case you've ever done before was interview the defendant, right?
yes,
Okay. And in fact, did you write a book, Medication Madness?
yes,
And did you say in that book, in those cases where the victims of medication madness have survived their adverse drug effects, I have personally interviewed each one at length? Yes?
each one in the book. I only selected people for the book where I'd interviewed them, had medical records of theirs, and had elaborate background. So I left out anybody where I didn't have a medical record, where I didn't have a personal interview. So that's the selectivity I'm describing, not of how I go about doing a criminal case, but how I went about picking roughly 50 cases for that book. And I just dropped out cases where I couldn't describe them in the greatest possible depth.
Right, because interviewing the defendant would be important.
Very important.
And in fact, several of the criminal cases where you've testified that someone was involuntarily intoxicated, you've interviewed them and interviewed them at length, correct?
Yes.
An individual last name Orban, a off-duty police officer, committed a sexual assault. You interviewed him for almost 4 hours, correct?
Oh, I'm sure I interviewed him for 4 hours, yeah.
And one of his counselors as well, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And then you interviewed him with his counselor.
yes.
Okay. In this case, did you speak to a single one of the defendant's doctors?
No, I don't try to do that. That's usually, they don't want to get involved in. There's been a death, they're worried about getting sued.
Did
It
you
really-
try?
No, I've been doing this for too many years.
Well, how about the therapist?
Often the doctor will come forward and say to the lawyer, I'd be happy to say something, but no, not in general.
Okay.
I don't ask to talk to the police detectives either. I know they're not going to talk to me. Rare occasion one comes forward and I talk to them.
But you would agree with me, sir, at the time you were testifying she was involuntarily intoxicated. She was under the treatment of a therapist, correct?
Yes,
And you didn't even try, you didn't even call that therapist?
No.
Okay. And you would agree with me that another defendant, last name Berniache, B-E-R-N-I-A-C-H-E, you interviewed him as well, correct? He was charged with he was charged with going back to a bar and shooting people, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And a gentleman by the last name Bernaccio, B-R-A-N-C-A-C-C-O, he beat and killed a 81-year-old woman, hid her body, and spray painted and burned her corpse. And you interviewed him.
I interviewed everybody in the book.
I wasn't going through everybody in the book. I was going through 3 criminal cases that you've
Yeah.
testified in. You interviewed him, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in order to form a baseline, one of the things you did was you talked to individuals, correct?
Yes.
But you didn't talk to anybody that had regular contact with her the summer of 2014, did you?
I asked to talk to those folks through the lawyer, which is the proper way to go. And probably because of this trial, folks did not want to talk to me.
So the people you talked to, but this is way back when you first started doing interviews in February of 2017, you interviewed people whose names the defendant's parents gave you, correct?
Well, that's right, and I didn't have these texts with all these other names, so I couldn't go and say, I want to talk to so-and-so or so-and-so or so-and-so.
Right, so most
I
of the-
only got them, and then I said, I want to talk to those people.
So you interviewed 6 people, correct?
Yeah,
Several of whom had not had regular contact with her for years.
some of whom, I think most of them had contact. It's a very small town, about 8,000 people, and most of the people I interviewed knew other people who knew Michelle, knew people who knew her right then, had seen Michelle around, visited with Michelle. In fact, one of the startling things that I heard from several different coaches was, no, I didn't have much contact with Michelle after she got sick because with her eating disorder, because she wasn't playing sports anymore, but she'd be the only kid in the school hallway who, when I walked down, would come over to me and ask me how I was and how I was doing. This was such a universal thing that, and I put it in the report. It was very, very surprising.
Now, you would agree with me, though, you're talking about all of these relationships the defendant had. She herself complained that no one ever wanted to hang out with her and nobody liked her.
Yes, she's vulnerable, lonely, unappreciated. Welcome to adolescence.
Well, sir,
And also, I think that she had that sense even more than most, but more than most, she reached out to try to fill that emptiness that she felt, the vulnerability. She reached out, and she reached out mostly in good, kind ways.
sir, she would send, you would agree with me that her texts tended to be extremely long, correct, that she sent to these people, her friends?
No, the only really very long texts, I believe, are from Conrad to her, talking for pages about how miserable he is. I don't know of any very long texts from her. Maybe there's one or two, but the
Sure.
longest ones in there, they're Conrad's.
Okay. Could I have a moment, please, Your Honor?
You may.
You know the name, first name Sam is one of her friends, correct?
Yes.
She texted Sam a lot.
Oh, my gosh, for over a couple of years, I think.
All right, so if you could go to 4/23/2014. Four 2014, 10:49 p.m. Fairly lengthy text messages, correct, sir?
Not compared to other stuff in here. Let me count the lines. What do you got there? 30 lines, 25 lines? Kids do that all the time.
And it starts out, I don't talk about this stuff with just anybody. Like, to be honest, you're the only one I've really opened up to. So, like, no one personally knows me. I told you about it all because you went through it so you understand, correct?
Yeah, this is her closest intimate friend.
Doesn't she say things like that to all of these girls? I'm just telling you, you're the only one I want to see this. Doesn't she send similar things to all of these girls?
Actually, I noticed a few times, and the times I noticed, she actually, I think, was only saying that to that girl. I could be wrong. Maybe she says the same thing to a few of the girls. She very, very, very much is in need of making contact and engaging people, but it's around real stuff, and she helps people feel better.
Sir, as I said, isn't it true that at some point or another, most of these girls tell her to back off and to stop?
No.
No?
I think maybe I missed it. I can only remember like one or two.
One or two girls?
Yes, I'm talking about the girls that she's just texting with. I'm not talking about...
But in general, sir, how many girls are you aware of that told her to back off or she wasn't supposed to contact?
No, that's a different matter.
Objection, Your Honor. Well, as to his awareness of other people, I will allow his awareness.
Thank you.
Do you have any such awareness, Doctor?
Yes, I have an awareness that at least two girls asked her to not relate to them anymore. It wasn't particularly around just the texts. It was a relationship.
Right.
They didn't want to have a relationship with him.
So two, outside of text messages, you know of at least two girls who told the defendant that not to contact them anymore.
Yeah, and they were separated in time.
Your objection? Yes, objection. Sustained. The answer is stricken.
Thanks, Your Honor. So someone else was a coach, Tim Mullen, who really didn't see her anymore, correct? These people that you interviewed?
Oh, you mean you're suggesting he's somebody who didn't want to see her anymore?
No, I'm suggesting he did not know how she was in July of 2014. That's what I'm suggesting.
Oh, I'd have to go back and look at the individual.
Okay.
Oh, boy. You got a good copy of my report there?
I'm sure the defense counsel does.
No, I was asking him, yeah.
Okay.
I think I may have it here.
Okay.
I think I'm going to get to it. I got it. And you mentioned Tim Mullen.
I did.
Well, I report that his main contact with her, and I was very glad to get this period of time, was age 10 to 13. And he says, I continued to follow the softball region. I'd see her at the athletic field. She'd be with a friend or two. I'd say hi to her.
Please don't be reading from something, Doctor. What was the question again? How long it had been since
Right.
this individual had involvement with Ms. Carter?
Exactly.
Do you have a memory of that, sir?
Yeah, well, he saw her on and off at athletic events for a few years after she was 13. Once she reached high school, he saw her only a couple of times a year at high school games. And he actually noted that she stayed friendly with him, which he said he really appreciated from a kid. After coaching all these years, she was very social with me, absolutely. Yes, so that was his contact waned off
Right.
after
So-
she grows up and moves on.
And of the two young people you interviewed, Evan and Jen, you would agree with me that Evan was not in contact with her texting between June 5th of 2014 and after Conrad died.
If you could tell me the number each time because there's so many pages about each person. What number is
A
Evan?
report or text message are you asking about? He's on page 64 of your report.
Thank you. Well, my understanding is that he's a 19-year-old boy at the time that I did this, known Michelle since 7th grade for about 8 years.
Your Honor, I would ask the witness not to
There's
read.
no-
Sir,
he's known the whole-
again, hang on a second, Doctor. The question was, did you receive information from this individual identified as Evan that he had no contact with Ms. Carter from June 5th until some date after Mr. Rory passed, which would have been July 12th to July 13th?
Oh, from June 5th.
Yes. 2014 to July 17th, 2014. I presume
Oh,
you looked
I'm
at...
sure he didn't.
Okay.
Hardly anybody did.
Wasn't she regularly texting Sam and Lexi between June 5th, 2014, after she got out of McLean's Hospital, right up until Conrad died? She was regularly texting many people, sir, wasn't she?
She was texting her her broad group of girlfriends and occasional guys, but she was not out meeting people on the street. She was in a hospital for part of the time.
Right.
Then she was in a clinic that she was going to regularly.
What clinic was she
And-
going to regularly?
The clinic right after McLean, for therapy. She
For
went
therapy?
Yeah, went
Okay.
4 or 5 times or whatever. I think 4 times. It's a short period of time. So she's not going to be visiting with people, and she's also moving toward a breakdown.
Now, I'm not asking if they visited each other, sir. Are you aware that she and Evan had no communication, including text messaging, from June 5th to after Conrad died? There's no text between the two of them.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
All right. And Jennifer Robillard is a few years older than the defendant, correct?
Yes, would you give me your page number again? This
Of
covers
your
a
report?
lot.
Sure, 67.
Yep.
Were you aware of whether or not Ms. Robillard was seeing the defendant during the summer of 2014?
No, she said in particular she wasn't seeing her very much then. Some, but not very much.
So of everyone you interviewed, Jennifer Robillard probably had the most contact with the defendant, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
But when you got the original names of who to interview, you didn't get the names of anybody that she was regularly in contact with during this time you said she was involuntarily intoxicated. Did you?
We talked about it, and I do believe I don't know if they said to me, look, these girls are, very uneasy since the indictment.
Well,
So,
weren't these the same kids who voted her these 2 superlatives that you talk about?
Yeah, isn't that a shame?
So they won't, you don't think it would be good to talk to them, but you're saying they loved her so much still,
No,
they gave her
I
awards.
said I would want to talk to
Okay.
them. I'm saying that they got scared.
Of what?
being involved in something like this.
So that's why you didn't interview them, because you thought they would be scared?
No, they would talk to me.
Okay. How many of them did you call?
I had Michelle or her parents call about 6 people or 7 people. One agreed to talk to me, and I just didn't get to follow up on it. I thought she was going to be interviewed in court.
But you would agree with me, sir, that of the 6 people that you interviewed, none of them knew the Michelle Carter that you are describing today, someone who's depressed, someone who cuts, someone who is suicidal. None of them described that person to you.
No, the sad truth is these young people really kept all of this to themselves, and I didn't get the information until I was given, and I wanted everything from the beginning. I was given the texts between her and her friends. That's when I got it.
Is it true that during the voir dire, I pointed out to you that back in 2012, the defendant had a classmate of the defendant had gone to the school and said the defendant was making statements about harming herself, and you said it wasn't a big deal. Didn't you?
Is there a question there somewhere?
Didn't you?
Oh.
Sorry, threw that out the end, Your Honor.
Oh, I don't recall what my response was, but I remember that the data you gave me, and I hadn't seen that. I finally got the clinic notes on that after some effort, but I didn't. What I was told was that she said something about not wanting to live. I can't remember what you told me. I said that's, and her friend had gotten scared and reported it. I said that by itself, that might not be, my thinking would have been by itself, that might or might not be important. I certainly think it's very important, everything I've found out about since then. And some of these things I heard about during your cross-exam, and I went back and said, I need all of this material.
Sir, wasn't it true that it was that her parents made mention of the fact that a student had gone to the school? I wasn't the first person to tell you.
Yes, and I was starting to look for it then, too.
1 second.
That's right, they may have.
Hang on a second, sir, please.
So, when you said that I was the one who cross-examined you on it, you knew about that before I asked you about it, didn't you?
I knew, yes, I did know about that. Thank you. Information.
Well, you knew a student had gone to the school and reported that Michelle was threatening to harm her. Is that correct?
No, she wasn't threatening to harm herself. That's not the information I have.
That she no longer wanted to live? What did you know?
That she was despairing in some fashion. And Michelle, the family didn't think it was that important.
Well, it was
But I
important.
wanted it, this is beside the point. I wanted that information, and I got it eventually.
Right. And you were aware, even then, that in order to get back into school, she needed to be evaluated, correct?
I can't remember. I may have even written that. I cannot remember all that detail.
Didn't I ask you if you had read the report? And you said no?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and you've since gotten that report, that's correct?
I'm sorry?
You since got that report. The report she needed to have done to go back to school, you've read that.
I got it later, yeah.
And fair to say in that, the defendant says, I wasn't going to hurt myself
Yeah.
when she goes back to school.
Exactly.
And her parents are consistent with that, correct?
Yeah.
So, and I asked you during our cross-examination about whether or not she was depressed, and you testified, isn't it true, that the defendant had no signs of depression for the 2 years leading up to the boy's death?
Yes, I did. I was actually quite mistaken. I found out after the voir dire. Now, the voir dire was not a preparation for testifying in court about the whole
We're
case.
getting
appreciate that.
Beyond the scope of the question.
Okay.
I appreciate that, sir, but you are a doctor, correct?
Yes.
And you came to this court to give an opinion to his honor, correct?
Which time are you talking about?
Let's start with the voir dire. Back on March 21st, 2017, did you come to this court to give an opinion?
Yes, but that's not how I thought about it. I thought about it that I came to this court to
The
get...
question was a yes or no question. Your answer was yes, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
With,
And when you gave that opinion, you indicated that defendant was not depressed, and no one had called her anxious even. Isn't that true?
Yes, that was the knowledge I had at the time.
So you were wrong.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
So being a doctor who spoke to all of these people, 6 people, reviewed all of this medical evidence, completely misdiagnosed the defendant.
No,
No?
no.
Okay. Well, you said she wasn't depressed, and now you're saying she is.
Yeah, I literally did not have very much information, and I didn't know I didn't have very much information.
At one point,
I was working on what I had, and in fact, I kind of did what everybody else did who knew her, which was that I learned about this girl who was functioning on a pretty high level despite her anorexia and then her bulimia, and who seemed reasonably happy and made other people happy. I had no knowledge about all this dark texting.
And do you recall during the voir dire being asked again about this evaluation? And I asked you, did you interview the individual? I asked you if you interviewed the young lady who went to the school, correct? Her name would be Alicia, is that correct?
Oh, I don't remember if you asked me that, but that's fine. Go ahead. I mean, I got a lot of information from your cross, and I went ahead and realized I didn't have the
Again,
stuff.
Doctor,
Excuse me,
you
Your
can
Honor.
just please.
Yeah,
go to the next
excuse me.
question.
But you already knew a girl she went to school with went so far to go to the administration to say this, correct? You knew that.
I not only knew it, I went immediately to the attorney and said, let's get this data.
No, not what you
Oh, I
said
can't
to
say
the
it.
attorney.
Yeah, sorry again. Your Honor, I really apologize for that
You
perseveration.
need not apologize to me, sir. My
Okay.
job to just make sure this trial is
Okay.
run efficiently.
And just so we're clear, I'm not asking you to tell us anything about any conversations you had. That's not the point of my questions, okay? And when I asked you about your thoughts about that evaluation, do you recall saying, yeah, but I didn't think it was a big deal. Many young people have feelings of not wanting to live that really didn't have much to do with the formulation other than I knew it happened, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you knew that I was asking you about whether or not she may have had feelings of not wanting to live, and you said, I don't think it's a big deal.
Yep.
Now, it is a big deal?
No, that didn't turn out to be a big deal. You just said that yourself. That didn't turn out to be a big deal. She went right back to school.
Right.
Nothing ever came of it. The big deal was all the enormous texting I didn't have and a number of medical records I didn't have. But, I mean, really, you said that yourself, that they said no big deal and you can go back. They didn't even ask for a follow-up.
But now you're diagnosing her with depression, anxiety, and cutting, correct?
Yeah, because that's the truth.
Okay.
Even though I didn't see it to begin with
Right.
because I didn't have the data.
But
I
I
just
asked-
go with the truth.
Didn't you, in fact, at that time, I asked you about the McLean's hospital records. And I asked you about an entry saying she reports a history of depression, correct? I asked you about that.
Yes.
And you said that didn't mean she was depressed.
It didn't mean she had a diagnosis of major depressive disorder, that's right.
Do you consider
Depression is very common. Kids commonly feel depressed.
Do you believe that depression is a disease, sir?
Not a biological disease, no. I believe it's a dreadful condition, but I don't know of any scientific evidence that it is a physical disease.
And then I asked you, well, not only, sir, do you not say she's depressed, you say she is essentially a happy child up until these issues with Conrad, correct?
Totally mistaken.
And you said
from
yes.
Yes, totally mistaken from lack of information.
And I asked you, fair to say that sometimes people hide that they're depressed or hide that they have an eating disorder, and you said, of course, correct?
Yeah, and it turned out to be so, that she was hiding she was depressed from the adults.
And you opined that she had not been depressed for a couple of years beforehand. That was your opinion as the doctor testifying.
A couple of years beforehand, what? What would we be
He
talking
said, I think
about?
it's an oversight. I'll correct it. I agree that's an oversight. I don't think that it's substantially important to the case because she's not depressed during the couple of years beforehand.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. As I said, I was going to look into it.
Okay. And you also opined that she did not suffer from anxiety, correct, back in that hearing?
Yeah,
Okay. And now you're opining that she does suffer from
it was
anxiety.
very clear she does.
Well, very clear from the text messages,
Yeah,
correct?
which I didn't have.
Right. And you said that...
I also didn't have the medical records that come right after McLean. What's the name of the clinic?
Anchor?
From Anchor. I didn't have the Anchor records, which actually say depression NOS, and they say anxiety NOS. They actually make those diagnoses. I didn't have any of that.
Sure.
That is not my fault.
You had this, may I approach the witness?
You may,
Didn't you have this from Anchor Counseling Center, which is how I
you
even use...
identify what this is? please?
Absolutely, it's a fax cover sheet.
All right, thank you very much.
I don't recognize this now.
Wasn't it included in the original packet of medical documents that came with your report to me?
I don't recognize it. If I do, what is the point? I'm not sure.
Well, because it gives her...
Sir, you don't get to ask questions, all right?
I'd be
Okay.
happy to answer it, but fair enough.
I may have missed it. I certainly asked for the records, and then I realized what was going on.
Well, fair to say, sir, that I asked you if you had the records from Anchor Counseling, correct?
Oh,
During the
gosh.
hearing.
I don't recall all those things from months ago.
I get it marked for identification, please, Your Honor?
For identification?
Yes, just for
Maybe
identification.
so, Mark.
Just make sure we all know the same, we're talking about the same thing. Now, sir, when you form an opinion someone is involuntarily intoxicated, let me begin by asking, how many times have you formed that opinion about patients or people you've been asked to examine?
30 times, maybe 40 times over 20 years. It's really a wild guess. Probably once or twice a year, I have that situation where I draw that conclusion. But I'm asked to draw it many more times, and I don't do it unless I believe it.
Now, one of the things, sir, that you need to do is, in forming a baseline, you are trying to determine if the behavior during the period of question is in stark contrast to his or her regular behavior, correct? That's what you're trying to do.
Yes.
But fair to say, in this particular case, your baseline was completely off.
I think that's quite true.
Right.
That at the point that short period of time that I had to go to the voir dire with very insufficient records, that my baseline was off. Absolutely.
So you would agree with me, if your baseline, if your starting proposition is off, that can greatly affect your opinion.
Well, that's why I carefully rechecked my opinion and found that everything in there reconfirmed the exact date that she had within 2 days that she had the breakdown of the intoxication.
Sir, isn't it true?
Now, let me finish.
Sorry, I thought you were done.
Yeah, all right, wait for another question, please, Doctor. If there's any concerns, Mr. Cataldo and Mr. Madeira will be able to follow up on redirect.
Sir, isn't it true that the defendant actually starts texting Mr. Conrad to kill himself on June 29th, 2014, not July 2nd?
There's a 2 days where it looks like she's provoking him to push him, to get him to say, I'm really not suicidal. And she actually says that in a few different places later on, and I think it changes from that. We just didn't get to cover that. It changes from her saying, no, you don't really mean to do it, you don't really mean to do it. And I think that's like a transition from pushing him to say he's not going to really do it to going into the other really way out position that she took.
Can you pull up the text message 629, please? at 6/29/2014, 7:04 p.m., outgoing to Conrad Roy. I know you say you're suicidal and say you don't feel like living and stuff, but you're never actually going to do it, correct?
Yeah, I think that that's where she's testing him, but it's not critical to my thinking. If she actually was beginning to push him, that's all within that same July 2nd period of time. But my interpretation of it and what she has texted about it was that she starts out pushing him to prove him wrong, and then she ends up doing this other thing, this grandiose,
The other thing would be,
delusional position.
the other thing that you're saying is she kept telling him over and over again to kill himself. That's the other thing, right?
During the period, she's telling him to do what you say you're going to do, yes. That's what she's telling
She
him.
tells him to do what you say you're going to, she tells him to kill himself, sir. Isn't that true?
I can't remember if she says specifically, kill yourself.
You don't remember if she actually says kill yourself?
Specifically, no, but it could be. It could be. But show me.
She gives suggestions on various
No,
ways.
show me where he's...
Okay, well, let's go over them. She gives him suggestions on various ways to kill himself, correct?
Oh,
She
absolutely.
repeatedly says, when are you going to do it?
Yes.
Okay. And when he does not want to do it or has the audacity to wake up alive the next morning, she berates him, doesn't she?
She-
Sustained.
Fair enough.
The answer is stricken.
She berates him when he does not kill himself at times,
She gets angry, yes.
telling him she feels like a fool, correct?
Yes.
Because she thought he really wanted to die, but apparently he doesn't.
Yeah. She's transformed into somebody who looks horrible. She transforms, starting, as I said, during the first time you examined me, on the 29th, that's what I was saying, and then by July 2nd, she's aggressive, she's angry,
What precipitated this sudden transformation on July 2nd of 2014?
One never precisely knows because a lot of it has to do, it's gone. A lot of it has to do with what's going on in the brain, so we don't get to know it. Like often in some of my cases, a man is walking down the street and all of a sudden he does something insane. He assaults somebody in front of video cameras, and he's a policeman and he knows the video cameras are on him, and he's got a guy near him who's a cop and he's got a gun, and he still goes ahead and does a horrible assault on somebody. So these things have that quality of starting abruptly, and nowhere do I see really good explanations of why. But we do see that she's getting worse and worse in the context of her relationship with him. He's insisting more and more, he wants to kill himself. She's giving up hope. That seems to be the psychological interaction, but going this out of character, I mean, to the other side of character, is the intoxication.
But sir, out of character, there's other instances where the defendant gets irritable with people when they don't do what she wants them to do.
I would say so much less than your average teenager.
Isn't there an instance where she's texting a young lady who won't respond to her, and she starts out... I won't say the name. Am I allowed to come? I won't go near you if you don't want, but I need you to know if it's okay to go. No response by this person. So then the defendant texts, you know what? Never mind. Fuck it. I'm going. I don't care what you say. Within 4 minutes. Do you remember that series of text messages?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to respond to that.
Do you recall?
The only question for you is whether you remember that set of
Okay,
texts.
yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Same person a few months later, and I'll leave out the name, Your Honor, to this individual. I really miss you. I really do. Sorry, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm so sorry. Bye. Then 3 days later, I hate you. Would you care if I died right now? You wouldn't care, would you? If you're that much of a bitch, don't even come to my funeral. Then a little while later, are you awake? Right?
Yep.
And this would be 11 November of 2013, correct?
Oh, I don't remember that date, but it sounds reasonable enough.
So that, she's not involuntarily intoxicated then.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. But
She-
you would agree with me, she's,
She is on antidepressant drugs, but I don't see that behavior as being particularly abnormal in all the adolescents I know, or in the texting that's going on with the other girls, which gets much worse than that. The other girls, the way they talk to each other, she's among the sweetest of them.
and who talks to whom? What are you
Well, you know, the girls talk very aggressively toward each other in here at times.
What girls? Who's talking
Oh,
aggressively?
I'd have to go back and search it again. And
Is someone talking to the defendant in an aggressive manner?
to- It's with bad language and words you're not supposed to say in public and stuff like that is just thrown around a fair amount. It's even one of the names of the texts.
Yes. I'm not, my asking about irritability is not her swearing. I'm asking you about the tone. She's saying to someone, when they don't respond to her, desire to respond to I miss you, then it's I hate you, you're a bitch, you wouldn't even come to my funeral. That's a bit of an overreaction to someone not responding to a text message, isn't it?
It is not an overreaction at all in regard to that girl. Not at all.
Doesn't she also say to that same young lady when the young lady won't respond, haha, like really? I haven't talked to you for a while, And I was like, maybe she'll respond to that group message I sent the other day because it was a sad day and you didn't give a fuck. When you said your friend Colin died, I was there for you and I said I was sorry, but I was stupid to think maybe you'd be the same or say something nice back. You really are a bitch and people are going to start to see it. And when you are having the time of your life and with these fake bitches you call friends, you'll start to miss people who actually gave a fuck about you. That's in response to someone not texting back. Do you
It's
recall
not
that?
someone, it's one person with whom she has had a very deep relationship.
Right.
And that kind of texting back and forth after a breakup of a deep relationship is not really far out of any spectrum of teenage relating and does not relate to something like where she has a dramatic transformation over 2 or 3 days where she goes from doing everything in her power to keep somebody from killing himself to deciding in a grandiose way that she can orchestrate his death and encourage him and help his parents out and all those kinds of things that she gets into. These are not even apples and oranges. They're not the
I
same
understand that, sir.
fruit.
But one of the signs, you would agree with me, there's no, the way you're diagnosing this involuntary intoxication is to look at a baseline, which you agree was wrong, of her behavior before, and then you see how it's different, and then you look to see if it has certain characteristics. And one of them is irritability, correct?
I don't believe she's displaying abnormal irritability. She has a couple of relationships that are very passionate and very conflicted. That is not way out for a teenager. And she's also very loving to that person and very caring to that person in a very deep way. She's got a lot of feelings about that person. This is not just somebody.
And when that person does not react the way she wants her to, the defendant lashes out, correct?
Yes, but that is a different, the girls lashing out at each other?
Yes.
My goodness, in my own
asking you
children,
to-
girls, I've seen them go through worse stuff than that.
Fine, I'm not asking you to compare it to other people. On the issue of irritability, I'm focusing on that specific thing. I'm asking you, would you agree that she is irritable at times with this young lady when she doesn't respond to her?
At times, she's irritable with her, but it's not the same thing. And there isn't some radical transformation that occurs. In fact, this has been going on and on.
Nope.
Wait for another question, please.
Now, with regard to involuntary intoxication, you would agree with me that one of the signs would be impaired motor coordination, correct?
No, not with SSRIs. That's
No?
when alcohol. So if you look at a list of things you can get with involuntary intoxication, as in the DSM that you're picking up, they will list intoxication as one of the possible signs, but it has to be a sedating drug, not a stimulating drug. stimulating drugs don't make people stumble or slur.
If I may approach the witness.
You may?
Thank you. Could you please, this is the DSM-5 for the record I'm handing the witness.
Very much.
Could you please grab the section in that book that covers involuntary intoxication for me?
Oh, would you give me the page you're at? Because I know you're looking for a single page where it
No,
summarizes.
I'm not. I'm asking you to please find involuntary intoxication so we can go over what the signs are.
Oh, there's no involuntary intoxication. Yeah, it's a legal term.
Then
That's a
what are
legal
you
term.
diagnosing her with? If you're saying she's involuntarily intoxicated, what is the diagnosis for her?
Oh,
the
she has a
DSM-5?
drug intoxication,
Okay.
which I believe is involuntary. It is, in fact, technically, it's a substance-induced mood disorder with manic features and irritability as a major sign. It's in the general group of substance-induced mood disorders. Stimulant drugs, including cocaine and amphetamine, tend to produce this kind of overwrought state with anger and irritability, but there are other intoxicants that produce sedation, and they often will produce also cerebellar impairments where the person is stumbling or has slurred speech. And I know the section in here that she wants to look at, I shouldn't say, excuse me. There is a section in here that lumps together all intoxications and says these are some of the symptoms of them, and they have some of the...
Question before you is about whether or not the DSM-5 has a specific criteria for the diagnosis of involuntary intoxication. It is my understanding that your answer is no, and it falls under a general category of substance abuse mood disorder. Is that a correct understanding of your testimony in response to her question?
Almost. The involuntary intoxication is a legal concept.
Right,
The
but it's not in the
involuntary,
DSM.
and is not in the
Good.
DSM.
Next question.
What are you diagnosing her with that is in the DSM? Because you referenced the DSM in your report.
Well, it's just, basically, it's a substance, if I were to go in the direction of just looking at the psychiatric diagnosis, it would be the substance-induced mood disorder with SSRIs.
Okay, great. If you could find the criteria for that in the DSM-5 so we can go over it, please.
Well, that's in different places. One place one would go is to mania, where it describes mania and then says that this can be caused by SSRIs. Do you want me to go to manic episode and do that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, on page 124 is the description of manic episode begins. It's under bipolar 1 disorder. That's a newer classification, but manic episode,
In,
and it describes exactly Michelle during that period of time.
but Michelle is not, the defendant's not, you're not diagnosing her as being bipolar.
That's not about being bipolar, it's about having a manic episode.
I understand that, but what category is it in?
Substance-induced, because it says later on in here that these symptoms can be produced by antidepressants.
What category, if I may approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may?
For the record, the witness, I believe you said page 124 under manic episode, correct? You said manic episode, page 124, sir, right there?
Unless I misspoke. Yeah, manic
Okay.
episode.
That is in the category of bipolar and related disorders, correct?
Yes, it's a related disorder to bipolar, which is manic depression, both.
Okay.
In bipolar, you have both manic and depression. They're now describing the manic episode.
Right, but she does not suffer from manic depression or
Right.
bipolar, correct?
but they're still describing the manic episode, which they will say can occur not just with bipolar disorder, but it occurs with antidepressants.
Okay, if you please tell us where that part is, where it
Oh, gosh, okay. Well, here's one. Manic symptoms or syndromes.
Can you give us a reference area by
Page 129.
section or page or something?
Page 129, the fourth full paragraph.
Thank you.
And this is in that section about manic symptoms or syndromes. So you see, they're not just talking about bipolar disorder, they're talking about symptoms or syndromes, which is what we have, that are attributable to the physiological effects of drug abuse, e.g. in the context of cocaine or amphetamine intoxication, the side effects of medications or treatments, parentheses, e.g. steroids, L-DOPA, antidepressants, stimulants, and the parentheses. And I could go on with that. But it also appears elsewhere. For example, when they describe diagnosing a manic episode, they have at the bottom of that, not if the person is being affected by drugs known to do it. There's probably 5 or 6 references in the book to the fact that antidepressants produce manic symptoms. And that, of course, is a theme in the full prescribing information. It describes this whole range of symptoms, which we're looking at here. And it's a very similar description in here, Your Honor, of the manic episode, of what she's going through.
One of the signs would be a psychomotor agitation or retardation, isn't that true?
Yeah, but tell me where you are.
I'm taking this off of your testimony at the voir dire, sir.
Oh, okay. Yes,
Okay?
that could be one.
Okay, none of that is here.
No, I don't think she's showing a psychomotor agitation.
And relative to her cognitive impairment, the doctor who was treating her at Anchor specifically looked into that and found no cognitive impairment. Isn't that true?
I don't think she has what we would commonly discuss as a cognitive impairment. She has, during this episode, when the doctor's not seeing her, highly impaired judgment, highly impaired impulse control, grandiosity, all of which are manic episode phenomena. And they describe goal-directed behavior and irritability when the goal is disrupted. All of that is very, very marked during the episode and are symptoms of a manic episode, and those are known in varying degrees from minor to severe to be caused by antidepressant drugs.
Sir, isn't it true she was going to Anchor counseling from June 18th, 2017 through July 22nd, 2014. June 18th, 2014 through June 22nd, 2014. The exact time you're telling us she was involuntarily intoxicated.
You're kind of right. I do believe actually July 10th is her last visit to Anchor, and I think that they let her go on the 22nd. It doesn't matter a lot.
Certainly, sir, it does matter. If she was receiving treatment around the time that Conrad died, doesn't that matter?
I'm giving it up to, oh, no, you're right.
Yeah.
What I was thinking about was that we have this more critical date of 2 days beforehand when she's at Anchor, and they diagnose her with depression and anxiety.
Sir, hadn't they already diagnosed her with that back on June 18th?
They diagnosed her throughout, and at the closing, which is, you're right, on the 22nd. I was more interested in the 10th, which occurs right in the middle.
And fair to say that on June 27th, she sees this therapist and she's discussing how she's sad at the loss of one of her friends, Alicia, correct?
Yes.
She's talking about Alicia. And she's talking about feeling hurt by this friend, correct?
The same friend.
Right, Alicia.
Oh, no, by being the second
Right,
friend.
this is another
Okay.
one. I'll get to the other one in a moment, but at that point, she's discussing losing a friend and how upset she is, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
She does not share. She does not share. She's
And
not
on
sharing with adults.
July 10th, where you're telling us she's involuntarily intoxicated, she can't decipher between right and wrong, she goes to see her therapist.
And doesn't tell him anything at all of what's going on.
And fair to
Not
say-
hang on, please. Not a word she tell him about what's going on. It's all in her private world.
All right, you've
Okay.
answered the question, sir.
And you would agree with me that the therapist describes her appearance as good eye contact, well-groomed, correct? Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Short-term memory intact, judgment good, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Behavior, no abnormalities, correct?
Yeah.
Her affect is appropriate. Her long-term memory is intact, correct?
Yeah.
Her insight is good, correct?
Yeah.
Risk of self-harm, none. Risk of violence, none, correct?
Yeah. Well,
Her
that's
attitude, yes?
Yes.
Her attitude is cooperative and pleasant, and her thoughts logical, correct?
Yes.
All right. And she's oriented to person, place, and time.
Yes.
And you're now telling us that she didn't know right from wrong at that same time.
Well, actually, she thought she was doing absolutely the right thing. But this is how she always appears to adults, and this is why I didn't have the information that was in her texting with her friends, and in particular with Conrad.
Yeah.
This is how she always looks. That's why I got fooled.
Now, sir, you would agree with me, though, on the date of July 13th, 2013, the day that she says Conrad is missing, telling everyone Conrad's missing, she doesn't tell her parents about it, does she?
No?
Right? So her parents are away,
well,
you would agree with me?
Well, wait. Her mom sees her crying hysterically and sobbing because she's beginning to think he's dead, is what's going on. The mother reported this to me.
Okay. That's not in your report anywhere.
No, it's very recent.
Right. I'm talking about earlier, sir. Isn't it true that the defendant's parents were away that weekend, correct?
I think so.
And she's texting, you would agree with me, the defendant is texting her mother while Conrad is supposedly missing on the 13th, correct?
As far as I remember, can we pull it up and look at it
Absolutely.
instead of going from memory?
Let's go, God, let's just talk about one.
Your Honor, could we have a break soon?
I'm sorry?
Could we have a break soon?
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you, sir.
All right. And under oath.
Thank you.
You may proceed, Ms. Rayburn.
So, focusing on now July 12th into the 13th, you would agree with me that at 8:02 p.m. on July 12, 2013, the defendant texts Sam that she thinks that Conrad's dead. It's not up on the screen, sir. I'll get to the one on the screen in a minute. But I would imagine that one would stick out for you. July 12, 2014, 8:02 p.m., she texts Sam that he's dead. She thinks he just died. Do you remember that one?
Well, I do remember it.
I haven't put it.
You haven't put it up yet?
No.
Oh, okay.
You gotta go chronologically. p.m. on the 12th. Sam, he just called me and there was a loud noise like a motor. I heard moaning like someone was in pain and he wouldn't answer. And I said his name, I stayed on the phone like 20 minutes, and that's all I heard, correct?
Yes.
So at this point at 8:02, she's just gotten off the phone with him 4 minutes before. Is that accurate, to the best of your knowledge?
Objection is how we know.
By looking at the phone, by looking at the evidence?
Sustained. It's not relevant to this witness's testimony.
Thank you, Your Honor. You can now move forward past the phone calls, please. At 7 on July 12, 2014, 8:25 p.m., now texting Sam, I think he just killed himself, correct?
Yes.
And then at 8:37, to someone by the name of Mason, Mason, I think my friend just killed himself, correct?
Yes.
And then she's texting other people, completely unrelated things,
Yes.
correct? She's
Yes.
texting Allie Ethier, correct?
Yep.
Asking about her plans for the night. Please continue.
Yep.
On 7/12/2014, 9:24 p.m. To Lexi, he called me and I heard like muffled sounds and some type of motor running, and it was like that for 20 minutes and he wouldn't answer. I think he killed himself, correct?
Yes.
And now texting after that, Allie, I can't tell if you're kidding or not, haha. Now, can you go down? Now, 7/12, 9:48 p.m. To Sam, I'm so fucking stupid, the generator he got the other day, I think that the noise I heard, I just looked it up, they emit carbon monoxide. I think he poisoned himself with it. And so it goes, correct? That's that text message.
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you would agree with me, sir, that there were text messages between the defendant and Conrad Roy about exactly how he was going to kill himself, weren't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So her telling Sam, I think the noise that I heard, I think the generator he got today, I think that there was a noise I heard, I looked it up, they can emit carbon monoxide. She already knew that, didn't she?
Yes.
Okay. And at that point, sir, go down to, please, Lexi, right there. Go up a little bit. Lexi at July 12, 2014, 9:52. Alexi now is trying to soothe her, telling her it's not your fault, correct?
Yes.
Please continue now. Okay. Now, and now, talking to Allie, she says, ha ha, yeah.
Give me the time and date, please.
I'm sorry, at 10:30 p.m., talking about Conrad. Ha ha, yeah, but I don't know, he's in a bad place right now, talking about Conrad, correct?
Yes.
She's telling Allie he's in a bad place. He's dead, sir, at that point. Right?
An objection unless she's going to relate it to.
Sustained.
Thank you. Did you factor that in your opinion then? The fact that she knows he's dead and is saying, ha ha, yeah, but I don't know, he's in a bad place right now. Did you factor that into your opinion?
Yes, I factored every bit of this into my opinion. Yes.
So she's telling one person one thing and other people other things, correct?
Yes, she is.
Now, July 13th, 9:02 a.m., correct? There's a series of text messages between her and her mother, right?
Yeah.
Now, you would agree with me, based on her text messages, she has listened to Conrad die the night before, correct?
Objection.
Oh, no, I don't think we know that. Yeah.
Well, she says she thinks he's dead, correct?
Yes, she says that.
Okay. She said she was on the phone with him for 20 minutes, correct?
It's going to relate to his opinion somehow.
I will allow the question.
She says she...
Continue,
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
Doctor. No, go ahead.
She says she was on the phone with him for 20 minutes and she thinks he's dead, correct?
Yes, she says that.
All right. So now the next morning, July 13th, 2014 at 9:02, her mother texts her, correct?
Yes.
Hi, Michelle, what are you doing? Right? Michelle responds, I'm at home. Mom says, doing what? Michelle responds, nothing, haha, when are you coming home? Mom responds, no, sure yet, correct?
Yes.
Doesn't tell her mother anything about what's going on, does she?
No.
She
May I
only
respond?
It was just a yes or no.
Okay.
Does she tell her mom anything about Conrad, that he may be dead, she may have been on the phone with him? Does she tell her mother any of that?
No.
She only tells her friends, correct?
Yes.
These same friends that she has been asking to hang out with her for the past year and who routinely don't hang out with her. Isn't that true?
Oh, I don't know that.
Well, you would,
I know that she talks about hanging out with the friends and doesn't feel they want to hang out with her. It's not clear to me how much she's actually hanging out with friends. She is a very friendly girl, and she's got lots of friends. I don't know the answer to whether she's hanging out with friends or not.
Well, you would
The
agree-
impression I get when the coaches talked and people talked about it was that she actually did socialize quite a bit. And she also does with some of these people say, you know, what they'll say to her, you look sad today, and they'll pick up a conversation from it. So I'm not sure that it isn't more that she has just such a deep loneliness in her, such a vulnerability, that she feels like nobody's hanging out with her. Because these people all call her and exchange with her.
right, sir, but when she's asking, for example, Sam, around the same time where Conrad dies, to hang out, Sam is always working and tells her that.
Yes.
And she's texting other people. She's texting Lexi to hang out, and Lexi's not hanging out with her either.
Yes, she's, I'm sorry.
Abstain.
I'll say yes. Or whatever.
Would it-
No, nothing.
Would you factor it into your opinion, the fact that the defendant wanted to hang out with her friends and her friends didn't have time with her that summer? Could that impact your opinion?
That it turned her into a crazy person who transformed her character, became grandiose, and
No.
encouraged a young man whom she loved and had been working with again and again to get better, that she turned on him and started to encourage him to die? No, I don't think so. I've never seen anything like that.
Wouldn't you
I've
agree
never,
with...
I'd like you to let me finish.
I
so.
thought you were done.
You have finished. Next
I have finished.
Sir, you would agree with me that throughout the defendant's long history of text messages that you read, she is consistently trying to get people's attention, correct?
Yes, I think she is trying to get her friend's attention, and she's trying to give attention.
Okay. So that's why she's texting people that she's cutting. We have a disagreement as to whether or not she actually was, certainly, but she's texting people that she's cutting because she wants their attention.
I think to some extent she wants attention, but she also wants help, and she wants to relate to people.
And when she talks to, for months, her and Sam talk about what she, the defendant, eats on a daily basis, don't they? There's hundreds of texts, if not thousands, of what the defendant eats and how she's feeling on a particular day.
Yes.
Okay.
But
And she wants Sam's attention, doesn't she?
I don't consistently hear Sam saying, all you want is attention. Sam relates to her in a very serious manner, takes extremely seriously the issues she's dealing with, shares her own issues about stuff she has dealt with. She has a genuine and important relationship with Sam.
Right, but Sam never had time to hang out with her, did she?
That I don't know.
Sustained. Counsel, we've
Yes, sir.
established this issue.
Thank you. So, on the morning of July 13th, 2014, she's texting multiple friends about Conrad, but she doesn't tell her mother, does she?
No.
And at some point during the 13th, she begins to text the Roy family, correct?
Yes.
And she does not tell the Roy family about being on the phone with Conrad the night before and fearing that he's dead, does she?
No, she's starting to fulfill her promise to him, which was grandiose and toxic, which is she's going to make it easy for them to go through the loss. That's her
Easy
promise.
for them, sir. His dead body is in a car for hours, if 24 hours, and she withholds that information.
She's psychotic, deluded, she's disturbed, she's out of touch.
And
This is such an abnormal condition. Everything you're describing is why I concluded she's got an involuntary intoxication.
But you would agree with me, sir, that in order to form that opinion, you had to form a baseline of her behavior, and your baseline was off, correct?
Well, my baseline was off in the beginning, and then I corrected it by persistently pursuing more information.
Right, but you're also telling
And then
us...
I admitted the baseline was off, and that in fact I now had even more information about what was driving her into this desperate direction, which is the relationship with Conrad.
And you also testified that you are missing 5 or 6 or more therapist notes and records, correct?
I was unable to get them, yeah.
Okay, so if your opinion was if your baseline was already off once before, isn't it certainly reasonable that it could still be off because you're still missing a ton of information about her?
Well, all the information I've gotten has confirmed for me that her baseline was not a violent, angry person who was looking forward to taking over somebody's life, as you're implying, and leading them to perdition. The baseline up until the 29th, through the, and starting there, but really, I think strongly on the second, her baseline is she loves this guy to pieces. She's doing everything she can to help him. She wants him to move nearer. She wants him to go to McLean. She wants him to get therapy. She doesn't even get angry. You talk about irritability. She doesn't even get angry when he says, I have a girlfriend now. Do you remember that? She doesn't even get angry then. I shouldn't ask questions.
I do remember it, and they weren't dating at the time, so she had no reason to
You're
get
answering
angry.
questions?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, Your Honor, I apologize. Thank you. So, you would agree with me that your original baseline, based on talking to 6 people, was, and I quote, she was pretty much the most loved person anyone knew. That's your baseline, right?
Oh my God, she still is. She was even after this action. She is allowed to come back to school. She's allowed to go through her classes, and she's voted most likely to brighten up your day. My gosh, even after all of this, which had to have weighed so heavily on everybody, they still love her.
Right.
So no, nothing changed about all that. I just got a deeper understanding from the text, this whole new medium we're dealing with, about what really went on inside her, until I knew better what went inside her than just about any situation I've ever worked in, because I see her texting during the whole breakdown. I've never had anything like that before. So my baseline is much stronger than it would ordinarily be, and it entirely supports my initial impression, which was about basically, did she have an involuntary intoxication? That is, in my opinion, certainly a high medical probability. It's been confirmed by all of this.
Isn't it also true, sir, during the voir dire, when I asked you about her and your diagnosis of her and the depression, at some point I asked you if there was any chance you could be wrong, and you told me absolutely not.
Oh, that was, first of all, I apologize for that. It's the first time I ever said that in court.
Right.
But I should have said within a reasonable degree of medical certainty. But what I was certain about was the involuntary intoxication, I do believe. I don't believe I was certain about her psychology and her experiences. I think I was addressing the involuntary intoxication because that stood out.
Now, sir, so you testified she got a couple of superlatives in her senior year of high school, correct? And that's part of your basis for your opinion?
It's a small part, but it's a part.
Okay. So, and prior to getting those, the year before her junior year, she was complaining that no one wanted to hang out with her, correct?
In her texts,
Right,
she
well-
doesn't perceive how much people care about her. She's really got some problems. She doesn't perceive how much they care about her.
So in junior year, she's complaining that no one wants to hang out with her. Her boyfriend dies. Senior year, she gets superlatives. Isn't that true?
She's getting that's gruesome. She's getting superlatives throughout her life. I've never seen anybody with so many superlatives from other people. She gets them throughout her life. And in fact, what she's doing with the texting, she texts to her boyfriend after he's dead. She's still doing everything for him. She's doing the softball for him. She's keeping her head together for him.
Mr. Clerk, can we switch over?
It's about her relationship with him.
So the fundraiser that was all about him, showing you Exhibit 19. So that was part of the event that was all for Conrad, her being picked up and smiling with her friends? That's the event that was all about him?
That doesn't contradict that. In her mind, this is one of the things that they agreed to. She was going to be a helping person. They both wanted to be helping persons. And she's texting to him in heaven that I finally, when she gets to $2,500, she texts him and says for her last text, we're finally on our journey together.
And this would be another photograph, correct, of her at the Homers for Conrad with her friends?
Yeah. She has forever looked cheery and happy to people. This is who she is.
And Exhibit 11. There's one of the teams, correct? At Homers for
Objection,
Conrad?
how he would know this, Your Honor.
If he does.
No, I don't know what these pictures are, no. I can't even see the pictures.
It's on your screen.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, all right, this is a picture with the ball team. I have no idea what it is.
Okay, so you were not shown these pictures, you did not see these pictures in your analysis then?
Oh, I might have seen them, but I didn't think about them. I don't know. I frankly don't
It
know.
had no effect on your opinion.
No.
Thank you. All right, so then on July 15th, she goes back to her anchor counseling, correct? The defendant goes to see her therapist again. This would be now 2 days post, strike that, 3 days post-death of Conrad, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is she still involuntarily intoxicated now?
I think that stuff is wearing off, and that's what usually happens, but she's still under the influence of this terrible trauma, the terrible thing that is probably sinking into her mind, because that's what happens after these things.
But she's still on the exact same dose as she was 3 days before of medication.
Yes, I mean, this is exactly what I observe in patient after patient, because they kept on, like a criminal, say he does some horrible crime, and within the last few months he's been started on the antidepressant, almost always they continue the drug. So when I first hear about the person, he's on the drug. And his people are saying usually he's not showing a lot of remorse, or he's not quite himself, or people who know him very, very well. And then I recommend, and we go through the judge, that he be taken off his meds. And then you find out more about what the person is really feeling. So it's not like there aren't drug effects going on. It's just that there's this terrible event. The person gets a shock of reality along the way, usually begins to feel really badly about what has happened, can't figure out what in the world, why, or what's going on usually, and gradually recovers and eventually feels terrible.
So she is somewhat suddenly and voluntarily intoxicated on July 2nd, 2014, and now by July 15th is coming off being involuntarily intoxicated.
Well, the
Is that true or
intoxication
not?
tends to be dramatically reduced by the violence that is perpetrated. And if you're looking at this as a form of violence, which is encouraging this, the shock of what the person has done. I'll give you an example.
I don't need an example, sir. My question was, did she start the involuntary intoxication on July 2nd, and is she coming out of it by July 15th?
She didn't start it on July 2nd. I said over a period of time around July 2nd, I think it's uncertain what her thinking is on the 29th and 30th, whether she's kind of trying to get him to say, you're right, I don't want to die. But then after that, by July 22nd, it gets even clearer to me that she's now cooperating with it, and he thanks her for that. He actually says, thank you for being
All right, so I'll be more
understanding.
broad. So the involuntary intoxication starts someplace between June 29th, 2014 and July 2nd, 2014, and continues on until when? When does the involuntary intoxication end?
Well, generally, I don't know particularly, I mean, it's hard to pin down. Generally, the catastrophe dramatically changes things. The person realizes something horrible has happened. person realizes it doesn't fit with what they were thinking at the time. And then there are remnants of it that continue, usually as long as the person's on the drug. There's some still abnormalities going on. In her case, she's acting like he's happily in heaven and everything's okay. I think that's a piece of what's left of the voluntary intoxication.
Do you recall testifying at a prior hearing that he would have been involuntarily intoxicated for about 2 to 3 months in total? Does that sound familiar to you, sir?
Yeah, I was making an estimate. I didn't have the text. And in this case, that's still roughly the same.
So on July 15th, Your Honor, it's 4 o'clock, so I'm not sure if I should
Do you
continue.
expect much longer?
More than a few minutes, Your Honor, yes.
All right, then we will, you may step down, Dr. Breggin, thank you. We will suspend for the day. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I will hear the motion to impound, and then we'll resume this testimony.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you very much.
May we just approach about scheduling about tomorrow with, it would be, if assuming that we have no rebuttal and there's no further witnesses, would we go right into closings, Your Honor, or? I don't need your close, I guess we should do it right.
Let's do it sidebar,
Okay.
maybe.